Ladies and gentlemen, today is so exciting because in the building we have Matt Kim. Matt, what's going on?
Hey man, I'm so happy and amazed to be here.
It's so awesome to have you here. It's truly an honor, honestly, because I always see your clips and it's just awesome to have you in the studio today. Matt, for the people that don't know you or have never heard of you, who the hell are you?
Well, reality is I don't think I'm anybody. My name is Matt Kim. I don't think I'm anybody. I'm a guy from the corner of Georgia, decided that I want to put my ideas out into the world, start making podcasts, start making clips, no background in anything that I do. Just start talking. And for some reason, somewhere, people are like, hey, I like his ideas. I'm going to start listening. So grateful for everyone that does. But again, I don't feel like I'm anyone special or different. I feel like I'm just one of the people, one of everybody else.
I hear that. And I think what I like about your videos so much is that I'm big on storytelling. And when somebody can tell a story very intriguing, very, you're always on your seat, like what's going to happen next? I want to know more. That's how I feel when I watch your videos all the time. It's crazy because it's a political thing. So you wouldn't think that something like that happens in political kind of storytelling, but it's amazing. So Matt, it's awesome to have you here, seriously. And I'm excited to talk about all the crazy things that's been happening lately. We'll get into our first story. We'll see where that kind of takes us from here. But the first story is that Boston's mayor sends holiday party invite meant only for electeds of color. So dividing city councilors. So what exactly happened was that Boston's Democrat mayor has come under fire after she sent out invitations for a holiday party intended only for minority city councilors. Michelle Wu, who we just saw on TV on Fox News, the city's first Asian American mayor recently had her aide, Denise, send out an email for the event. Honorable members, on behalf of Mayor Michelle Wu, I cordially invite you and guests to the Elected of Color holiday party. Interesting way to kind of term that. And then she accidentally sent that to all city councilors, which includes 3 or 4 people who are not of color. They're white, which apparently white is not a color. And instead of, saying, oh, I'm sorry, whatever, they actually doubled down on it. They said, yeah, this is a party only meant for people of color. Obviously, this got a bunch of backlash. And what do you think about that?
I mean, number one, I thought the word colored was, you're not allowed to say that anymore, right? But apparently, depending on who's saying it, there's a lot of words that depending on who's saying it, you're allowed to say. So I think that's weird. I feel like if they were going to allow this, then they should allow white-only parties, which they would never allow, right? But it has to be fair. I hate the idea that there are rules for me, but not for thee. That's the most contradictory thing, and I hate that. They should have just said, we're having a party, or maybe they could have just invited people individually instead of calling it a colored party, because there wouldn't be as much backlash. It's just a huge mistake on their part. If there were specific people that they want to invite, they could have just invited those specific people and no one would be upset about it, right? I want to invite them. They happen to be of color, but I want to invite them. Fine. It's your party. You can invite whoever you want.
Do you think Democrats do this because they're pandering always to this kind of race-based politics? Because you're absolutely right. Why not just send out an invitation personally to these people, and then there wouldn't be this big backlash of it? But they literally themed the party as like only for quote unquote whatever color people means, right?
I think they're just so in their echo chamber bubble that in their mind this made sense. Like they're like, oh yeah, we're accepting, we're diverse, we're trying to show and help out the minority community, which is awesome in their mind, I guess. But they're like, let's just invite all the colored people. And they didn't realize how that sounds outwards, because they're so unaware of how backwards their ideas are. And I think that's really what it is. They're just not socially aware of the situation they are and even the temperature of the country. They have no idea that what they're saying can be so polarizing. And they always blame the right for being polarizing, for being divisive, for being racist, for being white supremacist. And they do shit like this. And you're like, what the hell just happened here?
Exactly. And you said like a white-only party, right? I've seen Harvard have black-only graduations. And I'm always thinking about that. I'm like, imagine if it was the other way around, that it was only for white people at graduation. Like, it almost seems like the Boston mayor, she got a bunch of backlash about this, right? And what did she do? she doubled down on it. It almost feels like these people just know that it's wrong, but hey, who cares? We're provoking these far right extremists essentially. So I mean,
yeah, why are there allowed to be black clubs? And even if it's not black only, because they may allow people in the door, they have black clubs, they have gay clubs, they have Asian clubs, but you can't call it a white club. And well, I guess country club, but they don't call it that, you know. And I think that's the weirdest part. If you're gonna allow it for one group, and I don't even know if I'm opposed to having segregated clubs and restaurants or whatever. Not that saying it should be, but if you really want to have a black only club, I think it's fine. But you have to allow the other side to do it also. I just don't like the hypocrisy. I'm a free speech absolutist. If you're gonna allow one person to say something, you have to allow everyone to say it.
I agree. You know what's interesting though is that the more I think about it, I'm sitting here and I'm saying, why are they doubling down on this? You know, it almost seems like they've made it okay to discriminate against white people because they've made it out to be to where white people, they're white supremacists, they're evil, they're inherently evil, as they say. It almost feels like the only reason she came out and doubled down on this is because they've created a culture where it's okay to do this because whites are so bad. What do you think?
I mean, did you see the Obama movie?
You know what's so funny is that that's exactly where I was going. That's literally what I have next. That's where I'm leading us into. Well, I love it.
They're promoting it. You know, that there is a group of people that are evil. And I don't know why. I don't see what the purpose, the end goal of doing this is. It's hard to see kind of the big picture of it because it doesn't make any sense. You know, white people are 70% of the country. Obviously, I'm not white, you know? And it's funny because people say, Matt, you're a conservative. You're a conservative. You support Trump. You know they hate people like you. I'm like, what does that even mean? You know, like why? I'm here, David, right?
Yep.
Clearly not Asian.
Nope.
You know, but people love to put this race into everything that we do, and it's polarizing. And I think we should stop because it doesn't serve a purpose. And it's distraction from the fact that there are people that are suppressing the people that are oppressing society, and they are on one side of it. And we, of all mix of people, are on the other side. And they're trying to distract from that. And I think that's the biggest problem. That's what they're trying to make sure that we don't see.
I agree with that. You know what's interesting, though, is, and we'll go to this Obama story right after this. Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston that created this whole fiasco, she's Asian. Asians, through affirmative action, are discriminated more against than even white people. So somebody that's Asian, how do you see this when an Asian person that obviously understands that their community is constantly discriminated against because of affirmative action, because, yeah, they're successful, yeah, they're smart, yeah, why do they get grouped with white people, though? What do you think about that when you see literally an Asian person advocating against this anti-white rhetoric, which groups Asians into it, I believe?
I think I understood the idea of affirmative action maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, when there was more of a divide between the country. I think as a country right now, between different races, the division and the differences are the smallest it's ever been. I don't think it makes sense to have rules for one race versus another or preferential treatment for one or another. Even there are government programs to say, I want to help out. The biggest government boost is to be a veteran-owned, minority-owned, women-owned business, right? That checks the most boxes.
Yep.
And I've done a lot of government contracting in my life. And what happens is that you find a woman who is a veteran, who is a minority, and you put her into the main seat, and then it's some guy running the business behind him. It doesn't even actually do anything. You're not actually helping anybody. So people are already going around and figuring out how to game the system. I don't think we need it anymore. All it's creating is more loopholes, more people to cheat. I think we should be in a meritocracy. People who are most qualified should do their jobs, and most qualified should get into universities. I don't think there should be any division on either side, top or bottom, anymore.
So you're basically telling me you're against diversity hiring?
I'm extremely against diversity hiring. And to be honest...
But hold up, Matt, you're Asian.
I I've never
are
seen
you
the
a white
boost.
supremacist?
I am.
Are you the Asian face of white supremacy?
It's funny because every once in a while, I think on my Twitter, maybe a few months ago, I said I am a racist, misogynist, conspiracy theorist, and I put that on there. And every month I'll repost it, just in case you guys forgot.
Yeah.
Because eventually they're gonna call you something, and all the isms are there to just divide us, right? Mm-hmm. You can be whoever you want. And I think if you're gonna agree with that, which I think even people on the left agree, is that you should be able to be who you want, right? That's the whole idea of this kind of crazy trans movement. I believe I am who I am. Let me be who I am. Fine, be who you are.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna say that, let other people be who they are also. It's not just about you, and it's this selfish idea that only I can be who I want. That's the craziness of it.
It is. And that's what I always say. It's like, okay, I don't really mind you being like waking up in the morning and saying, I'm this person this day. Waking up the next morning, I'm this person. But when it starts to affect me, when you start to kind of, lock my words out of my mouth because, I have to call this person this pronoun and I have to call this person this pronoun and stuff like that. Now you're starting to impact me. So that's how I always kind of looked at this, as long as you're doing whatever you want to and it doesn't influence me, cool, let it be. You want to be a he, she, z, we, whatever alphabet you want to pull out of the soup there, be it. But when it starts to impact me, when it starts to impact maybe my future kids because of biological males competing in women's sports, that's when I start to have a problem with it.
Be whoever you want. Don't tell me I have to believe it. I'm not going to stop you from doing what you want in your life. I don't think the government, especially the government, should show up with their government gun and say, you have to believe something. You can do whatever you want in life. You can be whoever you want in life. I'm allowed to believe what I want to believe. Don't force me. Yep. I think that's really the divide. I just don't like the government gun showing up and saying, you have to agree with this. No, I don't.
I agree. What's funny though is that you just said the government showing up to your house and making you believe in it. Well, let's get into this next story about Obama's produced movie, Leave the World Behind. Now, I haven't seen it, but I know that you put up on your story that you either were watching it or maybe finished it. So you'll maybe give us a little, understanding of what's happened in that movie. But just to quickly kind of set up the context here, Leave the World Behind, that's the name of the movie, right? And it has been accused, they love this word, of using predictive programming. Now, what is predictive programming? And I'm just going to flat out read it because I want you to see what the establishment narrative is about predictive programming. It's a far-right conspiracy theory, their favorite claim, right? Claiming that the government, the Illuminati, or the elites, I would just say and the elites, not just or the elites, are using mass media as a method of mind control, sending out hidden messages to brainwash viewers and make us more accepting of planned events in the future. So that's what is predictive programming. Now, what I've heard is that there is a lot of predictive programming in this movie, Leave the World Behind. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, first off, the Obamas could, at this point in their life, do whatever they want. They have more money than God. So you don't start a production company and start producing movies because I want to make money, right? It's not their goal because whatever they make off this movie, it's nothing compared to what they've already made and what they have and other business ventures that they have. So this is not a monetization goal, right? So they can't say, well, this is a good idea, I want to invest in it. No, that's bullshit. They did this because they had an idea and a story that they really wanted to put out into the world. So you have to put that into context, I think, most importantly. Again, they didn't do this because they want to make money. This is a message they want to put across. In the opening credits and in the first scene, there is flashes of satanic imagery everywhere, which is so crazy because it's not like it's flashes. And we've seen this before and people have talked about it in probably maybe certain Disney movies where they hide penises and all these weird things.
All the subliminal messaging.
They put all this satanic imagery subliminally. And I think that's the most disturbing because that's how they start the movie.
Wow.
So in one of the opening scenes, there is a scene where they show a bed and on the left, there is a mug with a 6. And then there is a clock that's pointing at the 6. And on the other side, there is another clock that says 6.
All in a triangle, right? I've seen this picture in a...
They don't do this by random. There is someone there that says, hey, this is the imagery we want in the movie. why would the Obamas be involved with something like, they could have made something happy. They could have promoted diversity and acceptance. They could have done something positive for the world because they have money, they have wealth, they have influence, they have power. They could have. They chose to use and create something that talks about a dystopian future and how technology and how cyber attacks and how the world as we know it will end. That's such an odd thing to do and spend your efforts, and such a weird thing to retire into, isn't it?
It is. It is. You know, it's crazy when, I haven't seen this movie, but from what I understand, there's like a massive cyber attack and that kind of takes out every capability of humanity essentially surviving here on the planet, right? And in one kind of scene, we see a daughter laying with her father, kind of sleeping or whatever, and she says something about, if the world is gone, do not trust white people. I know that you and mom agree with me about that. Kind of, does that lead us back to this, everybody doubling down with this anti-white rhetoric? Essentially, it said that they've conditioned us into like saying, oh, this is normal. Yeah, if the world goes to shit, don't trust white people. Is that kind of the predictive programming that we're seeing here?
I just think it's bigger than that. I feel like there's a scene in the movie where they talk about 3 steps to how the world will end. And there are scenes talking about, they had made a weird shot at Tesla, which I thought was really weird, and how the self-driving cars can't be trusted. And that was weird. And they have different scenes talk about Mesoamerican mythology and deers, which is so weird and symbolic. And why do these evil people insist on using so much symbolism to kind of show what their plan is? It's such a weird thing to do. I don't like it. I thought it was a fascinating movie, and I watched it because I felt like it was opposition research.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what are they leading to? What are they trying to normalize? And as soon as they had the cyber attack movie, and this is how the world ends, we had the news that there was these cyber attacks all over the country.
Yep.
And we've been normalizing cyber attacks pretty much all summer. Hacks. Everything's getting hacked. 23andMe hacked. Las Vegas hacked. The casinos hacked. Planes disappearing and missing, and hacks all summer. And now we culminate at the end of the year with a movie about cyber attacks. And then now the news is pushing cyber attacks. It almost feels like we're leading up to it, doesn't it?
It does, and especially when you have Coral Schwab, the World Economic Forum, right? He comes out and he makes a 5-minute clip talking about, it's undeniable that there will be a cyber attack. And now I see the media come out and talk about that, oh, perhaps the internet is going to go down and we won't be able to retrieve it for 5-10 years. What are we going to do without internet and stuff like that? So I hate it too. And, it kind of reminds me of the subliminal messaging. Have you seen the movie Shooter before? With Mark Wahlberg, right? Wahlberger.
Wahlburger? No, I think
that's his
burger
place. It's good. I like it. So, but yeah, it's a movie essentially where you could say, I guess the CIA, the deep state comes and finds this veteran and says, hey, we have a mission for you. We want you to essentially kind of save America's democracy or constitutional republic by taking out somebody. But don't worry, you're not going to fully take them out. You're just going to shoot them to cause this whole thing, right? And what ends up happening is the exact same thing that we know happened with JFK happens in this movie, where they set him up essentially, and now he has to run from the cops. And I always look at that movie and I say, are they just showing it to us? Like, yeah, we did this. We killed JFK. We know this. Let's make a movie about this so we can essentially kind of do this predictive programming, show you, yes, we can do this. Yes, we've done this before. I see the same thing with Contagion. Have you seen the movie Contagion? It came out in 2012, and it portrayed exactly what happened with COVID. And to me, it seems like when stuff like this happens, people are more likely to be comfortable with seceding all their rights to the government. What do you think? Is that why they're doing these shows and movies where there's so much subliminal messaging? You're like, are you kidding me?
They're trying to normalize you to these ideas, maybe prepare you for these ideas. And then when they come, then it prevents from the crazy panic. because people are like, oh, we knew this was coming. Subliminally, they knew this was coming. It's so that they can push their agenda, do these types of crazy ideas that aren't that crazy anymore because we've seen them unfold over the last many years. And then people don't have this crazy reaction because if you found out that there is a world agenda to get people into a world government and to have, that they're going to use a virus, manufactured, man-made virus in order to shut down the country. If they told you that and that the first time you heard about it is when it happened, you'd be like, wow, it's crazy, panic everywhere. Because they've normalized you to this idea, when it happens and they're like, you got to stay home, they're like, yeah, you're right, we need to stay home.
Yeah, you're conditioned already, essentially.
That's exactly what they're doing.
That is crazy. Well, let's get into actually one more thing. Have you seen the show Designated Survivor? And if any of the audience haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It starts off, what is a designated survivor? It's essentially when they're having the State of the Union, all the administration is there. But what happens, let's say, if somebody drops a nuke on Capitol Hill, right? That means that the entire, essentially, government is gone. So they always designate one person from the cabinet to stay in some secret bunker or whatever, just in case something like that happens. Well, this show starts off with a nuke going off, or some big bomb, the mother of all bombs, killing all the government, all the senators, all the House of Representatives, all the cabinet officials, the president, vice president, everybody. And it's one of those shows where every single episode is some other crisis happening to this new designated survivor who is now the president.
Jack Bauer.
There you go. Yeah, and it's amazing. It's incredible. But and it was super popular. It was on Netflix. I forgot what program.
It was a Fox show.
It was a Fox show? Maybe NBC, I think. Or something. It doesn't matter, right? One of those shows. And it was super popular. And mid-season, third season, it was one of those episodes, essentially, that wasn't just, or it wasn't a storyline that just fit in one episode. They extended it for 5-6 episodes because some biochemical weapon leaked from China and is now going all over the world. And now we're watching this new president, essentially, kind of manage the situation, and boom, as soon as they get to the point of where it makes it to America, this virus, and it's starting to impact the future of the election that's supposed to happen in a year, boom, they cut it off. And what happens a year and a half later? I mean, this show was so popular, and all of a sudden, no more airing on Netflix, no more airing on NBC. They say that it went bankrupt. That wasn't so popular, but the ratings are there, and they cut it off right at this kind of peak. And then a year later, we get COVID-19.
I need to go back and watch that show.
I always think about that. I'm like, and the same thing happened with, I'm shooting blank. I forgot that other show, but House of Cards. I mean, they're showing you what the Clintons do, essentially, right? And then, he gets accused of some child trafficking or whatever it is.
Which I think he got away from.
He did. He did. Exactly. But it's always interesting to me when there's so much subliminal messaging like this. Let's get into the next part with the fact that Alex Jones is back on Twitter, now known as X, right? As you said the other day on my show, it's weird to kind of have to say Twitter,
so
X,
you
right?
go back.
But, one of the first things that I saw that he did when he was back on Twitter, X, is that he had a live space, right? A space is like a live stream thing that happens on there with Andrew Tate, Tucker Carlson, Patrick Bet-David, right? All these controversial figures, right? Do you think that there's kind of like this alliance being formed, essentially?
That's exactly what I think. It's a weird cast of characters that are slowly coming together. People that you would never have in the past associated with one another. So you have Tucker Carlson, and you have Elon Musk, and you have Andrew Tate, which is super controversial these days. And you have Alex Jones, which is completely trending. And then you have Patrick Bet-David, who's kind of throwing his hand into that ring now. And these guys that, say, 2 or 3 years ago, you would never see them together. They would not be associated. But the divide is now, are you for free speech or are you not? Are you for personal responsibility? I think that's a big one. Are you for personal responsibility and your individual freedom? Or do you want to live in a society that's controlled? And I think that's the biggest divide right now. Do you want control or do you not want control? I think that's the real dichotomy in the country.
I agree. Do you think so when Tucker left Fox, one of the very first interviews, shows that he had was on X, on Twitter. And then we saw President Trump skip the first debate and do an interview with Tucker on Twitter, Elon Musk's new platform, right? Do you think they're somehow kind of teaming up with Trump to help Trump because they realize that the only president that's going to offer this freedom of speech essentially to thrive is Trump, or somebody that is on the conservative side?
I think they're all backing Trump. I think Elon is coming around to the idea of Trump because he was not originally a Trump guy. He actually tried to back Ron DeSantis early on.
I remember.
Yeah, which was weird. And then he did the live spaces with him, and that ended up being a mess.
That was a disaster.
Disaster. But slowly they're coming around because they realize that there's one guy that's fighting against the establishment, at least in politics, and Trump is leading the charge on that. And it's either you back him or you don't. It's a really binary decision at this point, right? You're either for Trump or you're not for Trump. And if you don't like the way things are being done, if you don't like this feeling of there is a shadowy type of group of people trying to control their lives, if you don't like that, whether or not and how you feel about Trump personally, it doesn't matter anymore. He's the only guy out there that has a chance to fight back. And I think a lot of people are realizing that. And a lot of people that are kind of on that train of, hey, we don't like this feeling of establishment control. We don't like it. And even if you can't prove it, people can feel it. And if you don't like that feeling that there's something going on that doesn't seem right, there's only one guy that's fighting back, that's leading the charge on it. And I think people are getting in line and forming alliances around it. Because the reality is that the left and the extreme left and the establishment left, they're extremely well organized. There is no divide in their camp. They are all company people, right? The only way you can beat that is if you unite. Because the hardest part about Republicans is that they're always infighting. Can't stop infighting. Yes, we may not agree, and within the party, people don't agree on everything. That's fine. But figure out privately and put up a united front. That's what Democrats do. But for some reason, the Republicans and conservative movement can't figure that part out. And because of that, always lose.
They always lose. That's exactly it. I always say this. Every time Republicans get in power, they drop the ball. Remember 2016, they got all the Senate, they got all the House, they got the presidency. What did they spend those 2 years doing? Fighting with the president over the border.
Yeah.
And look how much they regret it now. To the point of where Democrats, Biden, campaign on the fact that he'll never build another inch of the wall. What is he doing now? After he took all the policies down that made essentially the border as safe as it could be without that wall. Now they're overrunning our entire country, and now they want the border to be there again, where essentially it's the fault of the Republicans because they fought President Trump all 2 years. And you're absolutely right. I never see Democrats go against the Democrat Party, essentially. And if they do, on a very rare case, they end up getting thrown under the bus, they end up getting investigated, and then they get kicked out of Congress. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you see this all the time. The left, let's say there's 52 senators on the left, all 52 will always vote together. Perhaps sometimes maybe one will go away or whatever, but they understand the power of being together, voting on this thing, even if they don't all agree on it. But the Republicans, they always have a divide. You have Republicans voting with Democrats, you have a Republican voting, against Democrats or whatever, but they're always divided on this, and it's crazy. I want to play a little fun game because I know that YouTube especially is going to try to do everything they can to censor what we're going to talk about next. So I was like, you know what? Maybe they can censor a poster that I have. So a second Alex Jones, not even before he was let onto Twitter, when the poll was just created, the media already went crazy, right? They were like, how the hell are they going to let this far-right conspiracy theorist back on the media, right? And they probably sent all their bots to vote on that poll.
And still not enough.
Still not enough. They lost it 70-30.
That's crazy.
Crazy. 2 million people voted. And we talked about this on my show too. They're crying to the point of where they're saying, oh, these polls are fake. Very non-scientific poll. You're kidding me? You poll 500 people for your polls that you say are official, but 2 million people is not official, right? So the reason why so many people hate Alex Jones, on the left especially, and there's some on the right as well, is because he always kind of he makes a claim. They call it a conspiracy theory. You wait a couple of years, and what happens? He always ends up being right.
His hit rate is just fantastic, isn't it?
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
So let's play this hit rate, actually. That's a great way to call it. So the game I have for us is Jones versus the media. Jones versus the media. I kind of want to get your perspective on things, right? So the game here is basically who was right? Who said what? We have Alex Jones making a claim, and then we see what the media says always afterwards.
I feel like it's going to be a 4-0 sweep.
Let's see. All right, so behind first one is we have...
Very professional, by the way.
Very, very. Oh, wow. Well, because that glue really got stuck on there. Government will use pandemic to usher in a police state. What did the media claim that was? If you can't see, that was conspiracy theory. Matt, what do you think? Did the government already usher in a police state because of the pandemic?
It's crazy how much control that they're putting out there, how much surveillance putting out there. They monitor everything. And I was recently in Korea. And when I was in Korea, the thing that I noticed the most is that there are cameras everywhere. Everywhere you go, there are cameras. Cameras in the street, cameras in the hallways, cameras in the entrances, cameras on the cars. They are monitoring what everybody does. And they've been normalized to it. To a point where if you want to live in a nice building, in a nice apartment building, the more cameras there are, it means it's safer. So now they're in a place where people want more surveillance. So not only are they forcing it on you, but they're convincing you that you need it. And I feel like that's what they're doing with all the crime going on in the country. They want to create so much chaos in the cities that people are like, please surveil us more. Please give us more control. Please control our lives more because we don't feel safe. And when we know that the government shows up with their surveillance measures, they will protect us. They're not even forcing it you in the way that we think they are, right? Because we think police state, we think surveillance, we think, oh, they're going to show up and they're going to put police everywhere and they're going to force you to do it. No. They're mentally preparing you to want it, to ask for it. And they're going to come in and they're going to save you. Because always, we're here from the government and we're here to help.
That's the Democrats' favorite phrase. You know what's crazy is that you always hear about this police state and you don't understand really what it means. For the longest I thought, what does that mean? Is that more cops on the street? I'm with it. But I didn't realize that it just means a mass surveillance program. And they could essentially take away all your liberties, all your freedoms using this, mass surveillance program just because perhaps you're not so environmentally friendly. Perhaps you misgendered somebody at work, whatever it is, right? Is that kind of what is the most scary about a police state is that they can start to essentially take away your freedoms and liberties just because you're not going with the agenda, you're not doing what they want you to do?
I mean, anytime you give these people more power, they will weaponize it, they will take advantage of it. And something that I don't know if we're going to talk about, but the Section 702 of the NDAA, it's a scary thing because it happened and if people aren't familiar, Section 702, it's part of the FISA Act, Foreign Interest.
It is Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Yep.
And basically what happened was in 2005, George Bush was using surveillance on Americans. In order to make that legal in 2008, Congress passed an act making basically what he did legal. We've been under that authorization since 2008. It's set to renew this year. And Congress and the Senate had an opportunity to remove that. But instead of removing it from our laws, which is unauthorized, which is basically warrantless surveillance of your communications and of all your activity online, the FBI and NSA can check and look through everything you do online without a warrant. This gives them authority to do so. There was an opportunity for the Senate to remove that because they're putting that into the NDA, which is a National Defense Authorization Act.
Yep.
Basically, in the annual budget of the Pentagon, they are hiding a surveillance law. Congress, the Senate had an opportunity to remove that yesterday. They only needed 41 Senate votes. They got 35. And actually, it was 35 bipartisan votes. Congress now today, before they pass this bill, has the opportunity to remove that. But what are they going to do? Of course, they're going to cower and they're not going to do it. And they are for 9 years going to have the authority to surveil you without a warrant. And people have no idea that this is actual law that's in the books that they've done that's extremely unconstitutional, that Congress had the ability to remove that unconstitutional law. But because they are cowards, they're going to allow it. And we are willingly giving them control. It's crazy.
This is the same act that was used under the Obama administration to spy on journalists,
correct,
and to blackmail them and to essentially threat them if they're going to be exposing these things. This was used to threaten Snowden, I believe, with the leaks and everything like that. And you're absolutely right. This violates every bit of our Fourth Amendment, I believe, the rights against search and seizures, unwarranted ones. And this is being tucked into our National Defense Authorization Act, essentially. This is literally the way Congress gives money to Pentagon, to our military defense budget, and they're tucking it in there.
Yeah, why is there a surveillance program being hidden in a budget? That makes no sense whatsoever. And it's such a big budget. It's for the military, it's for the Pentagon. And they're going to say, well, we have to, because we have to fight for democracy. We have to fight for freedom. We have to fight for your rights. So we have to pass this because we can't let the Department of Defense go unfunded. And it's such a good case, isn't it? Mm-hmm. We're like, yeah, you're right. We need protection. And in it, they go, oh, yeah, by the way, you've also authorized us to surveil you warrantless. It's crazy.
You raised it that it's bipartisan. These 35 senators that voted on this, they're not just Republicans. It's Republicans and Democrats. And to me, it doesn't seem like a bipartisan issue. The fact that the government is going to be spying on me or has the ability to, at any point, pull up my communications with anybody and see what is happening. It is frightening. And I just don't understand why. We've heard of a police state, a mass surveillance program going on, but it's unconstitutional, yet none of these advocacy groups, none of these firms are essentially suing the governments or trying to bring this up to the Supreme Court to make them weigh in on this. I mean, it just baffles me.
I mean, we know that the government has the ability to surveil if they choose to do so. Mm-hmm. And we know that they would probably do it anyway, even if we don't allow them to do it. Because they have the technology. It's really hard to give someone technology and say, oh, but you can't use it. But there is no reason, when we had the opportunity to take that official right away from them, why are we willingly giving it? And we elect these people to make these votes on our behalf. Why are they not voting for things that are so obvious? Like, why are we electing them? We elect them to make decisions on our behalf. That's why they're in power, right? That's why the congressmen are there. That's why the senators are there. They're supposed to vote based on our best interest.
Yep.
But they vote based on their best interest.
I think that's their lobbyist best interest.
maybe even so.
Yeah. And you're right. You know, they're supposed to be in there to essentially represent us, our interests. And I would even take it a step further. They're supposed to be there to protect our liberties, our freedoms. And it seems like these bought out politicians, and even some of the most grassroots ones, the ones that came from Tea Parties, Nikki Haley, for example, she came straight from a grassroots Tea Party movement, yet lining her pockets up with defense contracts, right? And it just seems like it's such common sense to say, hey, listen, the government should not be able to have this unconstitutional right to essentially to surveillance on you, and only 35 senators come out against this. I'm really curious to see what happens in the House.
And they only needed 41.
That's crazy.
You know, in order to remove that from the bill, they needed 41 votes, and they got 35. I put the list of the senators that voted nay on it, 35 that I feel like did the right thing. I put them on my Twitter, X. But it's interesting. It's not who you expected, which I found really interesting. Actually, I believe even in Georgia,
Ossoff or Warnock.
Warnock actually voted nay.
Wow.
Ossoff didn't.
Again, because I think there is similarities between the right and the left that lies in the grassroots, right? In this populist rhetoric, they're both anti-government, but to what degree? The left is anti-government to the point of where they want to actually usher in a bigger government, which confuses me, right? They're for socialism. They like kind of a dictatorship style government where the government controls everything. Where on the right, Populists is the same thing. They're anti-government, but they take the right approach here and they say, no, the government shouldn't be this big. So this anti-government lies on both sides, which is why I think we have people like Warnock, who you would think is going to vote with the Democrats on this, or with the establishment, I would say.
But he didn't, which, like, I don't like anything about him, but like, awesome. Good job.
Good job. Exactly.
You know what I mean? And
thanks for doing the work that you're supposed to do.
Exactly. But that means a lot because not a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And Republicans, they say we believe in small government, but I've never seen a Republican president and Republican Congress go in and be like, we believe in small government, so let's actually do it.
Yeah.
It never reduces. It only gets bigger.
You're right.
It's just a rate at speed of which gets bigger.
You know what's interesting is that I had a fellow on here a few weeks ago, Mark Meckler. He is the founder of Conventions of States Act. He does this with Alan West, and he he actually hosted the first party, or like gathering, if you would say so, on his state's Capitol Hill for the Tea Party movement. It was like 150 people. By the end of the Tea Party movement, they had 28 million people already signed up. So, but now he's advocating for conventions of states, which is essentially, for those who don't know, it's basically a way to get all the states to, not all the states, but you need 3/5 of the states to sign on to this petition that we're going to have a convention of states. They each send a representative to Capitol Hill like that, and they can amend the Constitution. Well, one of the main amendments that he wants to propose is that Congress will have a budget. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, Republicans are the ones that constantly scream, we want a smaller government, we want more fiscal conservatism. But what do? They get in there and they spend nonstop. And where does that land back on our steps, right? We have to pay for this stuff. So let's go to the second one. So number 2 on our list here. Let's see what we got. Maybe it'll rip better. It's not ripping better. Water is turning frogs gay. Now, look, I don't fault the media, because I remember when I saw this for the first time.
It's a hard thing to believe.
It's a hard thing to believe. So I think the media and myself, and probably a lot of people, agreed with this, that it's a conspiracy theory. But what did we end up learning? That it's actually true.
That's crazy.
I know, right?
It's crazy that this is a true one.
Like, what? And I was like, are they messing around with me? Like, that they're saying this is true? No, it's actually true. The fact that there's something in the water that has been, going to in the frogs' like habitat that has made them less masculine.
Yeah.
Has dropped their testosterone levels, and now they're not able to reproduce. So my question is this. We're always fed this by these globalists, Bill Gates and stuff like that. We need to have a depopulation. There's too many people on Earth. Are they putting the same thing in our water that they're, we're feeding to the frogs to turn them gay, so we stop having kids? And is this why I see Bill Maher show where he goes on and he says, you know what, like 10 years ago, it's 10% people that were gay, LGBTQ or whatever. Now it's 20%, or now it's 40%. That means that 2030, it's going to be like 80%. Is this the way that we get there?
I don't know if it's going to be the water, but there is definitely. I love when Elon said it. The world is divided by humanists and extinctionists, right? People who think that we should protect humans and have more people, and the people that we think, and the people in charge that think there should be less. And I think that's a really crazy divide.
It is.
Right? That there are people out there that really think that there should be less people in this world. And it's actually a true thing. There are movements of people that saying there should be less humans because humans are a virus to the world and they are taking and sucking up all the resources. So let's have less people. Like, that's how disturbed of a person do you have to be to promote the idea of less humans?
It's crazy. It's
so crazy.
And I think that these people are just stuck in this situation, honestly, where their ideology supersedes reality. Like, do you understand what you're advocating for? You're advocating for the fact that you don't want kids. I understand that. Whatever. You don't want kids. That's your thing. But why are you pushing that on the rest of the population? Because you think that, humans are so inherently bad. They're destroying the polar bears and stuff like that. Like, does that really justify the fact that we need to have less human beings on the planet?
And every time they say, "Oh, you guys are killing the polar bears," they always put up the Coca-Cola polar bear.
Yep.
Like that's not even real. But they want to tug at your heartstrings. Oh, look at the poor Coca-Cola polar bear. You're killing him. Like, no, that's not the guy.
They showed you this. Literally, talk about subliminal messaging or predictive programming, right? From first grade all the way till my senior year of high school. That is every single textbook. Science, environmental science, whatever it is, had that same polar bear. And it's like, if first started, like your sprays are destroying the ozone layer. So now you're at fault why there's less polar bears and stuff like that. It's absolutely ridiculous.
They never show the polar bear with blood in his mouth ripping something apart. They never show that image. It's always like the polar bear cub with the Coca-Cola can in front of the igloo.
It's because polar bears are vegan. You didn't know this?
I don't know anything about polar bears, but I don't think I'm the one killing them.
Oh my God. All right. So the frog one was just a little funny layup. Let's go to our next one. What do we have under number 3? All right. Elite/shadow government is pushing for one world government. The media said that this was a conspiracy theory. Now, let me just kind of set this up properly. The World Economic Forum doesn't even hide it anymore. In 2021, at their Davos meeting, they literally had a video shown to all of these globalists from around the world, the Great Reset. They're literally trying to push the idea that if ever there's another pandemic, if there's ever a crisis, an emergency or something like that, that a one world government will be better situated to take care of this crisis than these nation states. And we've seen, I don't know if this ever got put into place, if this was ever signed into law, but I remember when Biden first became president, when he went to one of these first globalist conferences, that there was essentially a treaty that he was going to sign that would allow the WHO or NATO or whatever it is, or the UN, sorry, not NATO, to take full control of all the operations, all the mandates and everything like that are happening here in America. So to me, it seems like they're not even hiding the fact that they want to have this one world government. Yet the media claimed that was a conspiracy theory.
I mean, we have the World Economic Forum, it's in the name, World Economic Forum, which controls and is trying to influence the economic policies of the world. We have the World Health Organization, which is going to be in charge of the world's health. And we have the United Nations, which is basically the world's military. So we have these organizations that exist, and to say that they're not existent, which is crazy, because they literally exist. We've all heard those names before. No one's going, United Nations, what are they? I've never heard of them. No, like we all know it. They've just normalized to it. Oh yeah, and they've have such a great name for their army, don't they? The Peacekeepers. Like that is branding and marketing genius, because you're like, oh yeah,
send the Peacekeepers.
Yeah, send the Peacekeepers. But if you look at it through almost a dystopian lens, you're like, fuck, they're called the Peacekeepers. That's so evil.
It's very Orwellian, I would say. It's straight out of 1986?
84.
84.
Yeah.
I don't know how that I say it out of my head, but it's very Orwellian, right? Like, war is peace.
Yeah.
That's what I hear from that slogan of peacekeepers.
Yeah, these peacekeepers come in and they're not promoting peace. They're promoting their agenda, and they come armed. Why are peacekeepers that are there to help and provide, aid and try to help people? Why they come fully armed? It's such a weird thing, So they say it doesn't exist, but they literally promote and show them every single day. But like, look, what you're seeing isn't real. There's no collusion. We swear. But we're going to call them the World Health Organization. We're going to call them the World Economic Forum. We're going to call them the United Nations, where all the nations need to apply for and be a part of. And we're going to have our agendas. They have Agenda 230, which they promote on the UN page. And every single country, I think except 2, have signed this agreement of what the World Organization would look like. So they were doing it. They're putting it out there for everyone to see. And the news and media says, no, nothing to see here. Like, no, you could literally go to the UN website and find Agenda 230 and see all the countries, which is every single country, has signed on to this agreement. Yes, it's not law because it's a world law, but everyone's on the same page. And the media says, no, it doesn't exist. No, like, I'm pretty sure every single country just signed an agreement saying we're on the same page. Like, no, nothing to see here.
Is the media negligent here, or are they complicit?
Oh no, they're a part of it. They are a propagandist machine. They are there to promote this agenda, and I don't think they serve the U.S. government. I think they serve the world government.
I agree.
Because if you look at even other countries, international news is heavily liberal also. Everywhere in the world. That's why these liberal extreme ideas grow, because every news is liberal. And companies like CNN doesn't make their money from advertising. CNN doesn't make their money from people watching, because no one's watching.
Yep.
They make their money by being the broker of all data and news. So if you are a Mexican news outlet, if you are a Brazilian news outlet, if you're a Korean news outlet, whatever country you are, if you want to get U.S. news, you contact CNN and they send you the clips to watch and share. That's why all international news is liberal. That's how it works. So there is one center that disseminates all the data to the rest of the world. That's CNN. That's why they make money.
That makes sense. That's actually some scary stuff too.
It is scary
about it.
that they control the world narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense why they despise people like Alex Jones, because Alex Jones is always there challenging the narrative, providing the reality behind the narrative and stuff like that. So
they just don't like the pushback. And you may or may not agree with everything Alex Jones says. And you don't have to agree with everything. But the fact that he's out there pushing back on everything. And even guys like Stu Peters, which is like out there, crazy, right? He just takes all these crazy opposing ideas that may or may not be true, throws them all against the wall, and maybe one or two stick. You may hate some of the ideas that he has, but he's willing to go out there and just throw it all out there, because with all the media control and the way that they're trying to control the way we think, it's more important for people to just constantly push back, you know? And again, some of the ideas you may not agree with, but it's the constant pushback that slows them down.
I think it's very dangerous to judge people based on if you agree with them all the way or if you don't, right? Whatever happened to this agreeing to disagree, right? 100%, you know, I don't agree with everything Alex Jones has said in the past, but that doesn't mean that just disqualifies him from ever holding any discourse in the public or saying, yeah, you know, what you said there was false, but man, some of the things you're saying, they're not even could be true. They are true. They're in your face all the time.
I mean, if this was a game of life and we were calculating win-loss by hit rate, conspiracy theories are winning.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it was by percentage of how often you're right, the conspiracy theorists have been way more right than the media propagandists.
I think it's a compliment nowadays to be called one of these isms, conspiracy theorist, racist.
Love it.
Love it. Bring it as much as you can. All right, let's go to the fourth one, because this will be fun. All right. So a month before 9/11, 2001, what does this say? Planes will fly into the World Trade Centers that will get us into Middle Eastern wars. This time, the media didn't call it a conspiracy theory because they didn't have enough time to call him a conspiracy theorist. Because as we know, that happened. That is 9/11, right? So I'm always conflicted here because 9/11, enormous death toll. These are your, Americans. These are your fellows, right? And yet there's a lot of this behind the scenes thing going on, right? We have the Pentagon, what was he? The shooting out of my head, but he was the main guy at the Pentagon, the Secretary of Defense.
Donald Rumsfeld.
There you go. He comes out and he says, hey, listen, the Pentagon has no idea where $2 or so trillion is.
Yep.
And what I know is that all the information, all the accounting, all the receipts for where this money went was either in the Pentagon or in the World Trade Center. It was one of the firms that was going to be kind of doing the audit, if you would say so. And then literally the next day you have 9/11 happen.
It was where they were doing the investigation is the exact location where the plane hit.
In the World Trade Center or in the Pentagon? In the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And apparently this plane has the ability to fly in at the most ideal angle at a perfect pitch in order to go directly into it and not create damage elsewhere. Interesting. I think 9/11 is a crazy one because if you look at just the act of 9/11, people can get upset. I get it. People died. Americans died. If you look at the big picture, 3,000 Americans died. 1 million people in the Middle East died. I don't know how, if you can call something fair or not fair, it doesn't seem fair to me. As a result of 9/11 and as a result of the wars, we lost our freedoms. They created the TSA. They created the Department of Homeland Security. We willingly let them pat us down at the airport and check us every time we go. It's theater. I looked into this heavily. How many terrorist attacks has the TSA stopped because of the checks at the airport? How many do you think that is?
Zero.
For what? How many years now? 22 years. Every single time we fly, we have to go through this theater of being surveilled and patted down, and they check random people. It's crazy.
Well, some people will say, you know what? It's my safety. I feel much safer.
But they haven't stopped anything.
Well, but they still say, I feel so much safer. What do you tell to these people?
Well, if
I feel safer. They haven't stopped any single, but in the future they might. If they
the
pat me down, touch my
ever
titties.
stopped anything in life, right? I feel like they would have put that front page news. Look at what we did. Because of our measures, yes, you may not like it. Yes, you may not like these long lines, but because of what we did, this is how we protected you. They're not even pretending to do their job correctly, right?
You're right.
They could have even created a false flag saving. They don't even go that far to even create a fake situation where we actually did something. Like, no, you guys stand in line. And I think that's the scariest part, because when you go through TSA and you go in line and you see the 75-year-old grandmother getting patted down, maybe sometimes aggressively, maybe more aggressively than you feel comfortable with, we all stand there and we go, well, I feel like I want to say something, but I'm not because I'm late for my flight. Right? They've normalized people to stand there and observe. And now what happens when you see people beating each other in the street? What do people do? Does anyone go in and step in and help? No. Nope. I want to record. Because we've been normalized to that. Don't get involved. We're the government. We're helping. We're figuring this out. We got this. This is not your place to stand up and make a difference. And we have all been normalized to that, because through our travel, we are told subliminally and literally, stand in line and let us do our thing. And that's the scariest part. They've taken away our freedoms and they've picked away at it, and we willingly have given them up.
It seems like this predictive programming has been a common topic between all of this stuff.
It's crazy.
It's wild, isn't it? And it's crazy. Like you say, it's so in your face now. And you're right. I don't know why they haven't created a false flag kind of thing where it's like,
they don't even care.
Saved, right? And yeah, they absolutely don't care. And it's crazy to me. Kind of takes me to this next question I have. How deep is the deep state? Oh. And let me ask you too, is there a difference between the deep state, whatever that may mean, and what it means to be establishment or part of the establishment?
I think the establishment are the people in Washington that are maybe at one point been in charge, but no longer in charge, right? But still control. Because as you know, most communities, even if you're not the name on the header, if you've been there a while, if you've been part of it, you're hanging out in the same bars, hanging out in the same restaurants, same circles, you still have influence and power. Power is not about title, but it's about social hierarchy. So I think the establishment are the people of the higher echelon of that social hierarchy within Washington. They make decisions, they have influence, but they're not actually in public service any longer. I think that's the establishment. The Clintons, for example, they don't actually make any rules, make any laws. The Obamas, they don't actually make any rules, make any laws, but they have influence over what the people below them do, just by being their social status. I think that's the establishment. Okay. I think the deep state is a group of shadowy people that have more money than God, that every day, if they were to spend as much money as they humanly want, they will have more money the next day. Because those people do exist. If I am a trillionaire, I could buy a private jet every single day of my life for $100 million, and the next day, I have $101 million left over, right? There are those people in the world, and they don't live by the same rules as we do, because they exist. If your family has been rich for 1,000 years, we don't live by the same rules. And the hardest part is that how do you identify these people? Because if you've ever been anywhere nice, right? If you've ever been somewhere called swanky, you're not paying extra for the privilege of being somewhere nice. You're paying for the privacy.
Yep.
So if you have so much money, you're not known. And that's the hardest part. How do you fight an enemy when you don't even know who the enemy is?
That's some scary stuff. So this actually takes me to the election stuff, right? Did you ever see the Times Magazine article about the 2020 election?
No.
Okay. So that is the deep state for me, and I'll explain what I mean about this. They flat out said that they didn't steal the election, but they fortified it. And what do they mean about fortifying the election? It was a group of individuals behind the scenes who were maneuvering things, shifting things. By shifting things, I mean changing state election laws without the state legislature being a part of it, which is unconstitutional when you look at state election laws. Is that the deep state in your face saying, hey, listen, we can control elections. We don't even need to hack into any computers, change up the tallies. We can change the perception of reality and not even have to steal the election. We can just fortify it. What do you think?
I think elections tough. I feel like elections have always been rigged. Not rigged, but there's always been cheating in elections. The left does it and the right does it. And it was an unspoken rule that we both do it. That's part of the game. Now we're in a place where, and I feel like maybe even Trump, maybe the right going into it, I don't think they played the game hard enough. I'm not saying he should he should cheat more, but everyone's been cheating. It's part of the game. In every game in life, in every business, anything where there's competition and there's something important on the line, people cheat. That's just how humans are. That's how things work. To say that in elections it's always been fair and all of a sudden this is a new thing, it's not true. They've always been cheating. There was just there was a gentleman's agreement between the establishment that this is how things are done.
The Uni Party agreed on it.
Agreed on it that we're allowed to cheat. These are the rules you have to figure out, and you have to play within these hidden rules as well as the known rules. So I think he just lost there. Was there cheating? Yes, I believe for sure it was cheating. But I think there's always been cheating, and how to incorporate that into your life and into your campaign, I think that's a part of it. I'm not advocating for cheating, but I think that's the reality of the world, that there is cheating.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they're going to have mass mail-in ballot operations, then, the right shouldn't be screaming here saying we need to ban that. Play their game.
Yeah,
I think
going against the mail-in balloting was a huge miscalculation on the side of the right.
Yep, I agree. Cost us 2 Senate seats, in my opinion.
Yeah, because on the left, they're like, you have basically 2 months to vote. And the right, they're like, we're all going to wait till election day. In theory, that's amazing, right? Because it shows solidarity with the cause. And it gets people excited and interested. But the reality of humans is that on election morning, you wake up and you're like, do you know what? It's a little cold today. I just don't feel like I'm going to deal with the traffic today. And people make excuses mentally in themselves, and they're like, I was going to vote. But, like maybe COVID's a real thing. They'll never know if I didn't go. I just don't want to deal with it. Oh, I'm not feeling well. There's a million reasons why someone can say, do you know what? On that specific day, I'm going to do it. And if just 2%, if 1% of people decide, do you know what? I'm not going to go, although I said I was, you've lost an election.
Which is the reality of it, right?
It was
because
that
1%. 1% is all it takes.
In Georgia, it was 10,000 votes?
Yeah.
It's nothing.
I think people always forget this, that the 2020 election was decided on 40,000 votes. Around 10,000 votes here in Georgia, 10,000 votes in Arizona, and 20,000 in Wisconsin.
Yep.
You're right. I mean, how many people, boycotted the mail-in ballots and just didn't go on election day because they didn't want to wait in line. They didn't want to drive. It was too cold. It was too snowy. Somebody sick, this and that. I think you're absolutely right. And to kind of tailor back on what you were saying earlier is that I think the Trump administration was just not ready for this, right? They kind of waited till after the election to start to expose all of these ballot harvesting operations that are going on and all of these wild things that are happening behind the scenes after the election, when they should have been in court trying to fight these things all along.
I mean, if you're Trump and you're going to these rallies and there's tens of thousands of people there screaming, and it feels like you have the movement of the people. And online you look and you're trending and everyone's talking about it, and you feel like this MAGA movement is growing, and you feel so good about it, and you feel the momentum. But then the Democrats in the shadows, they're doing these campaigns and they're gathering up these votes. You got to do both.
I agree. You know what's just amazing to me is the people that sit back and still say, and a lot of them are on the right, is that they say, yeah, 2020 was the fairest, most freest election that there is. And it's like, okay, we don't have to visit, the election machines. We don't have to visit even ballot harvesting or anything like that. Let's look at what's already in front of your face. I'm one of these people that retweeted New York Post story, I'll call it October surprise, about Hunter Biden's laptop. And my account got banned right away. I had like 200 followers. You know, what are they banning me for, right? But there was a poll done after the election that if people knew about this story that was censored, Hunter Biden's story, Hunter Biden's laptop, 17% of Democrats would have changed their vote. And that just shows you, I mean, the election, it may not have been exactly rigged how people want to see it on the machines, but you don't even have to go to that argument or even have to talk about that argument. At the very front, you have the fact that they censored a story that would have had a tremendous difference on the outcome of the election. And the second thing I always look at too is that it happened in our own state. Again, you don't have to go talk about computers, machines changing the vote. You have people going behind doors, behind the state legislature, and changing the laws of the election. So my question to you is this: if our party wants to be talking about 2020 and how unfair it was, should they be going to these stories about machines are rigging the election, or can they just kind of hammer these 2 points down, that the government censored a story that would have changed the election outcome, and we have people behind the scenes essentially changing election laws unconstitutionally?
I think you have to do both, because I think the important part is you have to show people by the pattern. It's not one thing that they've done, because if it's one thing, people are like, well, yeah, I can see that. If you show the pattern, people are like, oh shit, they are really going out of their way to make this happen. So I think that's what it is. One time is a coincidence, a couple times is a trend, and then you see more than that. Now it's a pattern. You have to show people the pattern, because I think the pattern is what wakes people up. One time, again, it can just be coincidental. They didn't know. The FBI said, oh, this is not real, and they took it down. Someone in their mind could rationalize that, right? If I'm Twitter, if I'm Facebook, and the FBI showed up and said, no, this is Russian disinformation, and they took it down, they banned everyone from sharing it because they really believed that it was Russian disinformation, then you can make that argument.
Yeah.
You have to show the pattern.
I like that. Let me ask you one of the last questions. 2024. Actually, before 2024, when people ask you, what are you politically aligned with? What would you describe yourself as? What is your answer to them?
I think that's a tough one, because in my heart, I'm an extremely conservative person. I believe in family values. I believe in fiscal responsibility. I believe in personal responsibility. These are the things that I think the core of what I believe as a person. Historically, I've always voted Republican because I feel like that aligns most with what I say. I also know that half the Republican Party are full of shit. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They're incompetent and they keep on losing. I don't want to say I'm a Democrat because that's ridiculous right now.
It is.
So that's why. And I wish there was an opportunity for a third party that aligned more with what I believe. And unfortunately, it doesn't exist. I don't know if we'll ever have that in this country. So I'm forced to go Republican. It's not something that I'm overly proud of because, again, I don't believe half the Republican Party are doing what they believe for your best interest. I just don't think they are. I don't want to say I'm anti-establishment because I believe that the government should exist to do the right thing. I don't think the federal government should be so large. I think that's a huge mistake. I'd rather give more money to local government.
Yeah.
If the mayor of the city that we live shows up and says, hey, we need $10 million because we're going to build a bridge. 2 years later, and be like, where's my bridge?
Yep.
When the federal government says, hey, we're going to give $500 million for tree equity in San Francisco, like, what the fuck? What does that even mean? How do I even know where that money went? There's no accountability whatsoever.
You're right.
I think the money should go local. If anything, we should be paying more taxes to our local governments to help the people around us, where I know, and if I knew that my dollars were helping my community, I'd willingly give more.
I think so many people share that with you. The fact that they say, hey, listen, it's great to have the establishment, a government presence and whatnot, but I don't want it this big.
Yeah.
I want to see changes in my city, in my county, and even in my state and whatnot. So what about, let me ask you this. So seems like we're in a crisis of language, because essentially I see a lot of people, and I'm a victim of this myself, or whatever it's called. I always call people that are not liberal libs or libtards or liberals, right? The full word. And then I actually look into it and I realize that, okay, I'm not a liberal. Don't take me for that, but I am socially liberal in some scenarios, right? I'm very conservative, but hey, if you want to be gay, be gay. You want to smoke weed, smoke weed. So I kind of find myself in this weird situation where I call myself socially liberal but conservative, and I always thought those were oxymorons because I thought they were the complete opposite. I come to find out that there's an actual political term, liberal conservatism, which defines it beautifully. You don't give a shit about other people in terms of like, you want to be gay, but go be gay if you want to, right? But you believe in fiscal conservatism in terms of being fiscally accountable and personally accountable and stuff like that. And I came to find out that actually the opposite of conservatism is progressivism. So I've now made it more like accurate when I tell people like, yes, I believe in liberal values, but I'm a conservative still. And that still solidifies me as an individual that votes on conservative values and traditions.
I mean, there is the Libertarian Party, which is, let the government get out of my way and let us live our lives, right?
Yeah.
Which I think I align most with, to be honest.
Yeah.
If I had to pick, if there was a third party and that was a Libertarian Party, I would say I'm more libertarian than either or. Unfortunately, in Georgia alone, I think 70% of votes went to whoever the Libertarian candidate was in Georgia.
Wow.
If they just voted for Trump, Trump would be president. That's crazy, right? Because people pick this third party because, hey, I don't choose either side because both don't reflect and represent me properly. I get it. That's how I feel too. But because of that Libertarian Party, Trump lost. Because if there was no Libertarian Party, most of them would have voted for Trump, I believe.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's funny how that works. Where we want someone that's in the middle, but if you choose someone in the middle, you're screwing actually the side that probably aligns with you more closely than the other.
Isn't that so interesting? It's that you want this candidate to be to be the president, to hold office, whatever it is, and because all their values, traditions, what they're saying, maybe not all, but they really align with you more than the Republican or the Democrat Party do. Yet you are forced to not choose this person because you understand that you're just hurting your chances of the policies you want to see happening in office. 2024.